Okay, guys, welcome back. So, what we have going on today is I have this character that I need to model for a little personal, independent sort of film that I'm making. Um, I have these two 3D scans here that I purchased off a website online. Um, and for the character that I need, because I do hyperreal stuff, I don't really do much of the cartoony type stuff. So I use the 3D scans because they make for really good 3D reference, just like you might use 2D photographs or drawings to as your reference. Well, 3D scans are really nice because they act as reference, but they're three-dimensional, so you can really get those shapes going, especially when it comes to super real characters, because the real human features are really hard to do, but with 3D scans, it kind of helps you out there. So what I need to do, basically, for the film that I'm doing, the character kind of needs to have this more muscled body type than this one. She is. We're gonna find her basically in this sort of futuristic lab inside a sort of like an amniotic fluid thing. So she was kind of grown in a lab, and she was designed to sort of have these sort of muscly features. But my problem is, as far as the faces go, I think I prefer the other woman's face over this one. Plus, this 3D scan here is not as detailed as I might like. But I think this one here is going to work a lot better for me. So it's kind of thing I got to take the head from here and put it on here. And then also, because this character is going to be found in this lab, sort of in this amniotic fluid, she is going to be nude in that, at least in that part of the film. So I may actually have to use sort of the breasts from this character, because this one here, she's got them sort of picked up by the bra, and that's not going to look good if she ends up without a bra on in the film. So it's a sort of mix and match thing that I have to do, which is good. You can, that way you don't have to completely use the exact same thing to do the whole model. So you change it up a little bit, because a lot of people, anybody can go on their website and buy these models, and it'd be nice to use bits and pieces from each one. That way you can kind of change it up so it's a little on the unique side. Okay, so what we're gonna do first, I'm gonna start with the head. So what I've already done here is just sort of deleted the body from this one, and I'm just gonna go ahead and hide this. And the reason that we don't use 3D scans themselves for the animation is, if you look real close at the geometry here, as you can see, this is just not very nice geometry, completely unusable for animation, and it's very dense. Just on its own, it's about 750,000 polygons, and really we don't need a mesh that dense. So what I need to do is model over the top of this to make it animation friendly. Get all the facial edge loops and things like that we would expect, and then we can go from there. So now that I've detached the head from the other one, I'm just going to move this over, try to position it where it would be. So something like that. Let's see, what if we move forward, maybe a little bit down. You can see that this model here has something of a long neck compared to the other one, so we just have to make it work as best we can, and hopefully it will look okay when it's done. So I can just keep adjusting here and then just deselect and see how that looks, and that kind of works. Maybe if I shrink her head just a little bit. Let's say that looks good. Something like that. So let's go with that. I'm just going to go in my front view here Go into wireframe, and it's kind of hard to see if this head is kind of centered to. One thing that you have to keep in mind as you use 3D scans is understand that human beings, while we're generally symmetrical, we're not completely symmetrical. People, one shoulder might be lower than the other. When we stand up, we don't stand up perfectly symmetrical. There could be a twist there. Your spine might be curved a certain way and things like that. Like myself, I have a slight case of spinal curvature. So when I stand, my right shoulder is a little bit lower than my left shoulder. So everybody's got a little bit of that going on. We're not really perfectly symmetrical. So when you go to model, and I think you can kind of see it. Let me go in the front view here. You could see that this shoulder here is a little bit higher than this shoulder over here. And that's just the way it is. You just do the best you can. I try to use this center grid line here. But as you go along, you may have to adjust a little bit here and there. You'll see that the hands, of course, are not going to be the same. And that's okay. When we go to model it, we in order to make things easier for the rigger, I will be modeling very symmetrical. So anything I model on one side, I'm going to use an instance so that it picks it up on the other side and does the same thing. So what's going to happen is, as you model and go down the body, what's going to happen is you're going to realize that the polygons that you're building on this side are just not going to line up with this side, and that's okay. Okay, we don't want to give an asymmetrical model like that to the rigger. It just makes their life a lot more difficult. So just bear that in mind. It's not a big deal, but it's something to sort of note. And then I have not decided. Right now she's wearing heels. I have not decided if I'm going to model her feet sort of in that sort of pointed position, because she is going to be sort of floating in that amniotic fluid tank or whatever it's going to be. So flat feet might not work there. So I may just have the feet pointing. Or it's also the kind of thing that when I go to rig this thing, if I model with the flat feet when I go to rig it, then I could just use the rig to point the feet. So maybe it's better I just model the feet sort of flat like regular feet. And again, if I bring back this model here, you'll see that her feet are flat down. So I may just take the feet off of this model. So once again, just mixing and matching these two characters. I may use her feet on her once we get to that point so that she's just flat-footed. And then I'll let the rig allow me the ability to change the positioning of the foot. So it's going to be interesting how we set it up. But for now, let's go ahead. I'm going to hide this, and then I'm going to hide the body here because I've lined them up the way that I like. So what I'm going to do, just to avoid moving things, I'm just going to just right-click and lock this head in its position because I know that that is where I need it to be. Okay, then to begin modeling, what I'm going to do is use Quad Draw. So Quad Draw is nice in that you can make this surface live, meaning that it becomes sort of magnetic to the polygons that you create. So to do that, I just click on this little magnet here. Right, select the surface, click on the magnet, and now it says head is live. Okay, so what does that mean? That means now if I go in my modeling toolkit, which by the way is this button here, it's not always in this side panel. Sometimes you have to click on it to bring it in there, and then it will be active. And then if I go to Quad Draw, that will activate my Quad Draw. And now anything I do, so I can click and make 4 points if I hold down Shift and click. And Quad Draw can be a little bit slow. My computer is not the newest computer in the world, so it might be a little challenging. You'll see that that point, that polygon is now perfectly sitting on that surface. If I hold down Alt and I click and drag an edge, I can just do that over and over again. And no matter what I do, those polygons are going to follow that surface. If I click Tab and then use my middle mouse button, I can do the whole edge loop I can extrude that out, and again, because this head is live, everything is going to stick there as expected. To delete an edge loop, it's Control and Shift, and you'll see that it highlights the edge loop to be deleted. You can see that my cursor has that little cross on it, that X mark. That tells me that I'm going to delete, and I can do that for faces. So highlight a face, click on that, it will delete it. Okay, and you can drag if it works. Yeah, you can click and drag, and it will delete whatever you have clicked and dragged. Okay, so that is a good sort of starting point for quad draw. Let's see if I can delete that. It won't let me do that because it needs to have at least one face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying out the so I'm gonna make a new browser window here, and I'm just gonna search for 3D facial topology, just to show you the sort of layout of the face that I tend to go by. I'm looking on the other screen here, so that's why you can't see what I'm doing, but I will show you right there. Okay, so this is my general layout for my facial topology. I tend to get maybe a little more dense in polygons than this, but this is a really nice layout of the facial loops. So around the eyes, we have the circle loops going around the eyes. We have the circle loops going around the mouth. Then we have sort of this chin strap thing going around here up to the bridge of the nose. Okay, so that laying out your face like that is going to give you the best animation capable facial mesh. Okay, and of course the reason that we do model in that sort of fashion is because, let's see, where's this image? Let's try this one. As you can see, the muscles around the eye, and I'm just Googling these images, the muscles around the eye sort of go in a circle, just like we would model them in, and the muscles around the mouth sort of do that as well. So we're just basing that off the underlying anatomy of the human face. Again, before you attempt something like this, it'd be a good idea to sort of study up on how you don't have to know every little nook and cranny of how the muscles work and stuff, but it's good to understand how blinking occurs, how your mouth moves for you to talk and things like that, how those muscles sort of tense and relax to give you certain facial expressions. And then also how the bones of the face sort of affect the shape of the face. There's also fatty tissue under there. All these things come together to sort of give you the face that you see. Okay, and then things like cartilage and stuff in the ears, etc. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do then to start going on those edge loops, I'm going to start to create some polygons. And the thing to note about when you start modeling your face is that you do not want to get too detailed too early. Okay, this is a very important point. If you start getting too detailed too fast, the detail is probably going to start to overwhelm you a little bit before it's really necessary. So start low and increase as you need. So here I've laid out a bunch of points here. So if I hold down Shift and click, and just wait for it. Again, quad draw can be pretty slow sometimes. So click again, wait for it. So generally I don't do the point thing except like right now at the beginning, because quad draw can be pretty slow to put down those polygons. Once I have some polygons started, I will just extrude edges to get it to work a little bit faster. So again, Control and Shift, I can now delete that last polygon. Okay, now without a doubt, if you look at around the eyes here, he's got way more geometry in there that I have here. So without a doubt, I'm probably going to subdivide this at least once as I go on. But like I said, when you're first starting out, you want to keep it pretty low, so that you can add the detail as needed. No point adding in a bunch of detail that you don't really need yet, because it will start to bog you down with moving all those verts and edges. So to move a vertex, you just click and drag on it, and it'll move it. It'll stay constrained to the surface because it is a live surface. And again, hold down tab, click and drag, just sort of pull that out. And I'm just going to lay out the shape of this eye here, using minimal amounts of detail. So here, I'm going to go like this, then hold down tab again. And I'm roughly trying to match up. So if I have a certain number of lines going into the eye from the bottom, I'm going to try to match that up to the top. So just keep that in mind as I go. So this line here, this point here matches up with this point here. So this one matches up with this one. And I'm not trying to be too neat right now. Right now I'm just trying to lay in some foundational geometry here to get the thing going. So again, just hold down tab and click and drag, hold down tab again, click and drag, and just sort of laying things out in there. So again, let's go tab to here, and I might move this up here. And then to join up these two, there's two different ways that you can do it. You can use tab as usual, just click and drag this out, and you'll see that as I sort of get to that point, it'll automatically merge for me. So just depending on how you want to do it. The other way is, again, just with shift. If you hold on shift, it's going to tell you where it wants to make that polygon between those two edges. So you just click if you like the polygon that it suggests, which in this case I do. Okay, so that is the initial layout of the eye area. So again, I'm always adjusting, and I'm sure as you model, you will do that too. Very low res right now. There's way more detail that will be added in later, but as of right now, I don't need to do that just yet. Okay, so let's go to the next edge loop. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold down tab, I'm going to click and drag this out. Ooh, let's try that again. Let me undo that. Okay, here we go. Click and drag to pull that out. I'm just going to sort of leave this here for right now. What I want to do is, when I hold down Alt and I middle mouse drag, it pulls out an entire edge loop, but because of the way this is shaped, it's going to try to do it around the entire object. But if I pull out this edge here, and then I do another one and pull out this edge here, now that's going to limit my edge loop extrusion to just between here and here. So if I hold down tab now and middle mouse drag that out, you'll see it only does it here. It doesn't try to do it all the way around. Okay, so let's see where we want to put, oops, oh boy. And we can drag this to here, and you'll see that it automatically merged for me. And we'll just sort of lay out the lower eye region here. Sort of pull it out like that. And here we go. Now this lady's face here is pretty smooth. She doesn't have any really strong lines or features as far as where some of these edge loops fall. So you just do the best you can with it, see where things go. So again, I'm going to hold down tab and middle mouse click, drag this out, and then adjust my polygon there and there. And at some point, once we get moving with this project, I'm going to probably do a lot of time lapsing. I think it'll be a long, boring video if I show every single step because there'll be a lot of repetitions and you guys might get bored. But for right now, while I explain some of my techniques here, it kind of makes sense to just sort of show everything here. Okay, so we're starting to get something going here, and you can see that everything sticks to the surface as expected. Now if you wanted to, you could have done symmetry, and you could have set to world X or object X so that it would do the other half. So bear that in mind as you do this. Let's see. So if I want to add in an edge loop, so as you can see I do that, I just hold down control, and when I hold down control, it'll show me exactly where it wants to put in that edge loop. So if I want to say put in an edge loop right here, all I got to do is hover my mouse over one of these edges and click if I like the position of it. If I want to be exact about it and have that edge loop exactly down the center, all I need to do is middle mouse click, and then it will cut it down the exact center for me. So now we have added a little bit more detail there. We can just start to adjust a little bit, maybe spread these out a little bit more. And see where we can go with this here. Okay. At this point, I also like to start to define the bridge of the nose. So tab, I'm just going to pull this out here and then pull another one out. And I'm going to sort of go to where the center line of the nose should probably be. Now it's going to be difficult for me to snap that to the center, and which is okay because I can always do that later. Right now I'm just laying out my shapes in here. Then I also like to start to pull downward on the nose here, and again just trying to keep it somewhat straight. Doesn't have to be super duper straight, but we get it close. Okay. And again, just pull this down to the tip of the nose and straighten it out as needed. Okay, so here I might need to add some detail. So again, control click, and you see that it popped out to try to match the surface, which is what I want. Okay, so for now that's okay. I might also, just to lay out things a little bit, I might pull this up here, then pull another one up there to sort of start to begin going up the face. And you can see that I have a natural polygon there, so I can start to close that off there. Tab, click up here, maybe click up there, and then tab middle mouse so that it'll take both of those, and you'll see that if I move it closer, it's going to merge to one or the other. Oops. So let's merge that there. This is a very convenient way. You don't have to actively run the merge command. It's just going to merge for you based on proximity. If it gets right up next to another vertex, it's going to snap to it and merge, which is a really nice feature. Okay. So this area here, let's see, how do I do that? Let's hold down tab, extend this down, but what I usually like to do is have this go this way, and then we're going to cut across here, and now we can sort of close that off that way. Okay, this gives us a 5-star polygon here, which we may clean up a little bit later, but for those of you that don't know what a 5-star is, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons all converging on this point here. What that does, it gives us this sort of star edge formation here. Okay, these 5-star points are, they're inevitable. There's no way you can get away from them in a face. So if we look at this, you'll see that he has a 5-star right there. You're going to have a few of these on your face as you go. He's got another one right there. He's got another one up there. So he's got another one up there. So they're not, you can't really avoid them. but just be aware of them. Just make sure that you're aware. Okay, so you know, modeling is just a whole bunch of tweaking and trying to get things to work the way that you want. So middle mouse and drag that. And now you can see I'm starting to build out the forehead a little bit. Okay. And I'm always moving points. Sometimes I'll move one point one way, then I'll model some other stuff, and I'll come back and I'll move it back to where it was and not even realize that I'm doing it. It's just part of the modeling process. It's not a big deal. That's just something that we do. And then if I want to jump back to the nose here, I can sort of come back here and then tab and pull this down here. So I'm just sort of laying out that middle strip of polygons of the nose here. Let me cut that on just to get that to flow a little bit nicer, and maybe cut here to start to shape that a little bit better. Okay, so we're starting to lay out the nose area, and I'm trying to keep this centered, but we'll see. You know, I can always adjust it later when I'm in the front view. And again, tab, and I'm going to pull this, oops, tab, and make sure I'm on the edge, and I'm going to pull this down to start to define this area here. So then I'm going to cut a polygon here, Alt, pull this out. I'm just going to run this all the way to the corner of the mouth. Okay, make a single cut there. Maybe pull up this edge to give a little bit more curve to that mouth. For me, when I do modeling like this, I do adjust features of the model away from some of the features of the 3D scan, because I'm not constrained to having to use the exact person. If, for example, I was doing a movie and, you know, this was, I don't know, The Rock or somebody, and they had 3D scanned him, then it would be important that I be as faithful as possible to the 3D scan. But in this case, I don't have that restriction. So if I need to make her cheekbones bigger or smaller, or maybe give her more of a jawline, then I will do that. It just depends. So feel free to adjust as you need. I tend to like pulling these away from the 3D scan because the 3D scans are, you know, freely available to anybody. So you don't want your model looking exactly like the next guy's model who used the same 3D scan as a starting point. And continuing on, just pull this down. Let's adjust these points around. And then again, I'm going to go to about here to match up to there. So let's take this and this. This one goes to about here. And then this one I'm going to take to the center. And I can always put in that other one in here. So let's move this up like that. Okay, so now we've started the edge loop for the mouth area. Oh, you know what? I actually did that wrong, because you can see where above the mouth we're sort of writing the mouth, where we're writing the crease of that upper lip. So this should actually be down here. So I'm just going to move these down here like this. Oops. Let's take this edge and this polygon here and move it here, and then move this up. And that's what we should have done. Okay, so just be aware of how your edge loops run, because mistakes like that can, you know, come back to haunt you a little bit later. So just keep an eye on, and every now and again it makes a point. There we go. Just make sure that it's highlighting the thing before you click on it. There we go. So this is more, and looks like I have lost my edge here a little bit. So what I can do, I'll undo that. So to make my life easier, I'm just going to Control Shift, delete that, and now we can sort of hold on, tab, pull this out here. And then hold on, tab, and run this to about the center line. Now we're following that like we want. Okay. If I want, I can start to put in a little something here, maybe just to give a little more curvature right there, then put in a matching one here. Now, one thing to note about the human faces, there's like a sort of like a fatty mass right in the bottom corner of the mouth here. So a lot of times I'll run these polygons out here like this, and for right now that'll work. We'll adjust it as we go, and then this sort of gets narrower here. So you have this sort of bulging area here. I think my polygon strip might be too thin right now, so I'm just going to widen this. Okay, so we're getting there. Like I said, this woman her features are really soft. So she does have that little area here, but it's not very strongly defined. So you might miss it if you don't know to sort of put it in there. So just so I can define that a little bit better, I'm going to put in another another edge loop here. And then sort of pull this out here, and maybe put one in here as well, so pull this out. Okay, so now I'm starting to get that, and even though it's not that well defined, it's good to sort of know that it's there and hint at it. So now that I put in this geometry here, I'm going to do that there and that there, about there. And then just sort of round out this geometry here so we don't have any straight edges. All right. So we're starting to get somewhere here. So now we can keep going. If I say cut here, I can connect that there, and if you don't like it, you can always take it out later. But you want to throw down some polygons. So at some point you got to go from eye edge loops into this area here where things sort of come down into the face. So I'm thinking that this edge loop here will be the beginning of that, so I'm just going to drag it way out here. See where it lines up. So it looks like it naturally is going to line up with that polygon. That may or may not change. We'll see. And right now, again, I'm just trying to lay this out, try to figure out where everything is. So around this nasal labial fold here, that kind of makes sense there. And we're just going to pull this down here. You see how big the extrudes are? That's because right now I'm just laying it out. I'm not trying to get detailed at the moment. I'm just trying to figure out where some of these features are going to be. This guy modeled it where that strip of polygon sort of comes around and goes to the front of the chin. For me, a lot of the times they sort of come around and go underneath the chin and come up the other side. So it's that'll depend on how you want to do your head. I usually take them around this way, and we can see if that'll work out. We can always change it later if we don't like it. Maybe bring this down here. And that's looking pretty good, so let's keep going. So about something like that. Okay. And adjusting again. See what works. Maybe start to pull this out here a little bit. Oops, and I went out of quad draw. Let's go back into quad draw. Okay. Yep. So for right now, I like how that looks. Yeah, let's go with that for right now. So now we have this geometry coming out of here, so naturally it might want to split through here. So let's put a polygon again, holding on shift here and shift there, and just wait for quad draw to catch up. There we go. Okay. Now I'm not sure that I'm liking this polygon right here. You'll notice that in here we have a multi-cut tool, so if we click on that, we can cut in geometry the way that we like it. Now, oh, let me undo that. I need to go from this point. There we go. And there. Click and drag. There we go. That's how I like this to go. So, now that I've sort of defined that for myself, let me see how I'm going to make that happen. Because I don't like, this is very triangular and I don't really like that. So I gotta figure out a way to do that. What if we, and it's okay to sort of cut up your mesh to try out things. You can always, you know, change your mind and get rid of some of this stuff. But if I do this now, I can control shift and delete this edge. So that'll be a nice quad polygon there. Okay, this is working a little bit better. Now I still have this triangle here, which I need to get rid of. And I think what I can do is go on my multi-cut and cut across here. Control shift. Go back into quad draw first, then control shift click. And again, this is not the greatest right now, but let's go with it for right now. Okay. So that's not bad. Let's see what happens if we do this. So experimentation is perfectly normal to get geometry that feels right. Feel free to experiment with it. Now, this is one of those 5 stars I was talking about before. Generally, you get one here too. So just bear that in mind. And then to get rid of this triangle here, what I'm going to do is just cut from here to here, which I can then control shift click to get rid of that and adjust that. Now, the reason I didn't just cut through there, because rather than do it by hand on each one of those, I'm just going to hold on control and click, and now I can get my multi-cut and just cut there. Oops. So you can see now I've cleaned that up. That feels a lot better to me. I have my 5 star there, which I expected, so I'm not too worried about that. Let's just adjust some of this to make it smooth. With your edge loops, you want your edge loops to sort of be as smooth as possible. If they're really, like you see this one, if it's jagged like that, it generally means that it's not, you haven't quite done it well enough. So you want things to flow pretty smooth. There's no real jagged lines like that on a human face. So you want to keep it pretty smooth. So I tend to spend a lot of time just sort of fixing up my edge loops, making sure there's no real abrupt changes in geometry flow. So we can move this up here. And again, we are still pretty low res, so you know, things like that. Once I add more geometry, and that's going to smooth out pretty well. Okay. There we go. See how that nice smooth curve to it there. And then in here, because we added that extra geometry, you may be able to spread things out a little bit. Get this to flow a little bit smoother. And then we can hold on Control. I'm going to middle mouse click just to split those polygons perfectly in half. And we can start to sort of round this out here as well. And do the same thing here. You see we're now starting to get a pretty nice flow to our geometry. And it's starting to look good. Okay, if at any time you want to see what that looks like smoothed, I'm going to hide my head so I can just show this. I'm going to hit 3, and you can see how things are starting to shape up. Okay, there's not much there, but it's a good start. So going back into quad draw, and yeah, save your work, because losing work is not fun, trust me. All right, so that's saved, and that looks like a good start on the head. And I save again because I get paranoid with saving, so I save a lot.